The Lord be with you. Let us pray. Loving God, we give you thanks for this day and the opportunity to be together as we gather to look back on what you have accomplished through us and the goals that we would set and ask you to accomplish through us in the coming year. Be with us. Give us your guidance and your presence. In Christ's name, amen. Thanks for being here when it's like 15, is it what, 15 degrees outside right now? The high is 16. Yeah. Now here we had a pipe problem in the kitchen, so there's no coffee. Sorry about that. Oh, there is coffee? Okay. All right. So this is, we're going to talk about the past year a little bit. We're going to talk about the year to come. Y'all are getting a preview. This is kind of the Rector's report in full. There will be a written one, which is going to be these slides, basically. So y'all are going to get the commentary along with the slides. People who just show up at the annual meeting are just going to get the commentary, really, unless I decide to write some more. But first off, do y'all have questions? I'll write them down. If I address them naturally in what I say, great. If not, we'll get to them at the end. What are some questions y'all have, either about what we've done in the last year, mission, ministry, any of that, or questions about things coming up? Just anything you want to know. Thomas. How much are we growing? What was the second part of that? Are we actively continuing to grow? That's a very good question. Just stick around to the very end. Any other questions that we want to know? If things come up, hold them. We'll have some time at the end, unless I just get wildly off track. Okay, mission and outreach. First off, these are some of our mission partners for the past year. You'll see Four Saints and Friends. They've rebranded a little bit because there's now more than Four Saints, right? It started with us, Trinity, St. Luke's, and All Souls, which used to be St. Albans in Arlington. And now other Episcopal churches are involved. Lots of other non-church people are involved, so it's grown. Union Gospel Missions, Catholic Charities, Presbyterian Night Shelter, Episcopal Relief and Development. We're going to add some more in the coming year. We'll talk more about that. We, just some numbers, for those of you that like numbers, we last year gave away a little over $13,000 that came in through the Christmas offering. So the Christmas offering is what funds outreach, right? And so and the quarterly Four Saints campaign. The red envelopes, we raised $7,500 in those red envelopes last year. So we gave that. Also $6,000 additionally to the other outreach partners. There's $5,000 that we didn't spend last year that we've carried over. That's a timing thing. We're going to spend some money this month in January and get that out because we got y'all's new contributions. And so you'll see in the budget for this year, we're planning $17,000 in outreach spending, not counting the Four Saints. The red envelopes live outside of the budget, but $17,000 is what we're planning to spend in outreach. I mentioned last week 2,400 cans of corn. And so that's just indicative of, there were 2,400 cans of corn. There was how many bags of backpacks when we did the backpacks in the spring? It was 100, wasn't it? Or 104 backpacks. So that's just indicative of when we challenge y'all to hey, here's an idea. Y'all step up and meet that. And there's other things. Right now we're doing the soap. And if you look in the small parish hall, there's boxes. There's probably 100 things of soap in there already. So things like that. 4,500. That's kind of the exponential impact that we have. So 4,500 individuals every month are the people who we touch through Four Saints, just for an instance. Because if it's about 150 people, 150 to 200 people on a Friday, and then you multiply that times 4 because it's different people each week, and then you multiply that times 4 or more because each individual represents sometimes a lot of folks. So we get up to, we're pushing 5,000 people that we're able to touch through the work just at Four Saints. And you add in all the other partners, and it even grows from there. Sean, you had a question.
When we have those non-financial donations like corn and soap or whatever, we don't have to monetize that.
That's actually a good idea, we don't. I mean, we track them in which, like, I have a report to the vestry every month in which I say 200 X, Y, and Z, but we don't try to figure out a dollar figure or all of that. That's a good idea to think about. Another thing, coats. You know, a big thing we do in the fall. We bless them all on our feast day because St. Martin is famous for his magic coat. 170 jackets. And if you remember St. Martin's Day, it was like 85 degrees or something, and we joked about, yeah, this is really great. I'm sure those jackets are a real blessing today. A little over 1,400 today. We're going to pack lunches. We're going to pack 120 lunches next door right after the service. That turns into, at the end of the year, almost 1,500 people who are able to have lunch because of what we do here. And then $1,000, if you remember, our Lenten outreach project was right before Lent started, was the earthquakes in Syria and Turkey. And so we partnered with Episcopal Relief and Development, which partnered with groups on the ground to provide relief there. And so we contributed $1,000 through that. We got big ideas for our Lenten outreach project this coming year. We'll talk about that in a minute. Thomas, I have a whole set of slides about your question because that's something people care about. So we track visitors every week. If you don't know our process, is Christine in here? No. Christine one day said, hey, do we like call visitors when they show up? And I was like, well, I try to, but they don't always get a call. She's like, I'd like to do that. It's like, okay. And so every time we get a white card, which is a fraction, just to let you know, a fraction of the number of visitors we get each week. But anytime we get a white card, or you can do a thing online, folks get an email from me immediately after the service. So I go back in my service. If the ushers leave the white cards where I ask them to, sometimes you ushers hide them from me, and I have to track them down. But I send them an email Sunday afternoon, and then I send Christine the info. And sometime during the week, Christine calls everyone. And sometimes leaves a voicemail, sometimes has really great conversations, and she tells me about them. And there are people who come back a second time because they got a phone call from Christine, right? And so that's what happens when a visitor turns in a card. So we track visitors. It's something that the diocese now expects us to track and submit. We don't get cards for everyone, so sometimes it's a guess. I'm at the point now where, like, I know most of you. And so if someone is not one of you, like, I mark them as a visitor in the books. And so you'll see we, by the end of the year, had about 330 visitors at some point throughout the year, right? So that works out to about 6 a week, 6.5 people a week. You know, there's some weeks like a baptism where we're going to have 20, and they're people that are never going to come back. Some weeks we have 1, and then they're going to be the person who the very next week signs up for the choir. We've had those visitors too. So there's a wide gamut, but about 330 visitors throughout the year, which turns into average Sunday attendance. You track, I started tracking this, I showed up somewhere around here. This is when we were signing up for spots in church, and these are artificially low, right? Because like we force them to be low. Before COVID, ASA was about 158 in 2019. And then during COVID, it fell down to about 60. 2021, it was about 68. The 2022, it got up to about 120. We're at about 140 ASA people in the room, right? So people who worship every Sunday throughout the past year, we're about 140. If you take the last 6 months, we're closer to 150. If you take the last couple of weeks, we're even more than that because we still got Christmas in there. And so like we can keep narrowing this thing until the numbers look real good, right? Like I worked for law firms who worked for Enron. And so like, I'm willing to do what it takes. This is on video. Hey, Bishop Doyle, I'm just kidding. One thing we started to do this year, because the diocese has asked us to, is we have people who worship with us online every single week, right? They're not just people who pop on. They're people who are there every week, and I go visit them. Some of them send money, right? There's And so you add those in, that's about 30 people every week. You add that to the 140 in the room, that's 170 for our ASA. And so we're going to have, so just people in the room, we're at about 25% growth from 2022 to 2023. You add in the online, which I'm going to go back, I haven't yet. I'm going to go track down the online for 2022 as well to see what a more apples to apples number is, because our ASA is going to jump pretty significantly because we reported 120 or so last year. We're going to report 170 this year, right? That's a big jump, right? The jump's not quite as big because, right, it's really more like 120 to 140-ish. But yeah, we're growing. It's evident. And you look around, we got 30 people that come to 8 o'clock. A year ago, we were having 20 people, right? So even the 8:30 service, it's growing. You go in there, today's going to be cold, and so it might look a little bit different, but you can just feel there's numbers. The number of kids that run off to Children's Chapel has grown from, it used to be like 7 or 8 to now we're averaging like 16, you said, or something like that. Some weeks we got 25 people. There's some weeks that more people go there than we're at 8:30, right? I mean, it's not just a thing. Like, it's a legitimate worshiping community of this place. Yeah. So we got some growth, which is exciting. Yeah. Was there a question over here? Retirement homes. Yeah. Yeah. We'll have to talk about it at the end. There's not anything in here, but I love that because the whole last section is dreams. We'll get to that in a minute. Major feasts. This isn't showing the whole slide for some reason. Let me jump ahead. Yeah. Major feast. If you look at like Christmas and Easter, I'll fix this before I publish it because it shows there should be a yellow and a red for each year. For some reason, it's not popping up. Those numbers are all trending upwards as well. We just had Christmas. Christmas this year had a not insignificant more number of folks. I'm not going to quote a number because it's going to be wrong, but it was a fairly significant jump in folks. Yeah. So yeah, if you remember last year, 2022, well, 2 years ago at this point, how long am I going to be doing that? 2022, we had 4 services. We had a 3, a 5, a 7, and a 10:30. We had more people at the 4 o'clock this year than last year, the 3 and the 5 combined. And so we reduced capacity but increased attendance. So yeah, all these numbers are looking good. Sacramental acts, we had 10 baptisms throughout the year. Most of those little babies, a couple of teenagers. We had 5 burials and 19 confirmations, receptions, reaffirmations. I believe there were this many like in 2017, but outside of that, it's been a while since we had that many confirmations within a year. Yeah, please don't. No. Yeah, that's not one we're looking to increase. So I talked about the online stuff, right? We have 30 people that are there kind of every week, right? They're faithful. My mom's one of them for whatever reason. She attends 3 churches on Sunday mornings because she has nothing else to do. Just kidding. She does. She does. But this is one of the things. So this is indicative of COVID, right? And online. My mom has stopped going to church in person because of that. And in that time, her son became pastor of a church. The pastor of her church moved to another church. And so, like, my mom goes to her church, the Summit in Aledo, online. And I think before that is Peter, who now pastors a church in Baltimore, Washington, or Baltimore, Maryland. And then she worships with us. And so, like, last week, the sound doesn't work. This is funny. I go back to my office after church. It's like 10:40. I'm like, Mom, you know I'm at church. I get a text. There's no sound. What am I supposed to do with that, Mother? 260,000 people watched our videos last year. That's not just Sunday mornings. Like we talked about a couple weeks ago, Liza has a video that like 500 people a day watch Liza talk about St. Peter, which is unreal to me. Like, you know, and the way these things happen is no one watches these videos for 2 or 3 years. And then all of a sudden something happens. There's a video where like 400 people a day watch Scott talk about frogs. It was some children's sermon he gave. And a couple years ago, long after he had moved on, something happened and it just ramped up. And so 260,000 people watch these things. But down here, right, 25% growth almost in subscribers. These aren't just people who stumble upon. These are people who actively do something so they'll get fed our videos. And whether it's Sunday morning worship they get, whether it's Gavin and I sitting in a pew talking about who knows what nonsense, whatever it is that we put out there. We've got plans this year to do some more of that because we've seen some real growth. And we have people who found us online and now they're with us in person. And so not only is this a worshiping community of its own, this is also a way in which people find the in-person community here as well. We'll talk about that in a minute. This is Facebook, same thing, 15% increase in our Facebook reach, full 100% increase on Instagram. We still don't do a ton there, but we did some more and it worked off. This, we didn't pay for as many things this year. We had paid for like Facebook ads and things like that. We did not do as much this year and did not see much of a decline. And so you can see when things peaked. Like this, I'm guessing right after February. I don't remember when Easter was. Maybe it was somewhere around this. This is probably the confirmation, right? May 31st when we confirmed all those people. Down here, I don't know why people get interested in churches in December. Is there something that goes on around here? Yeah. Yeah, we have those numbers, and Annika and I we didn't cross paths in person this week just because of whatever. I don't like the idea of membership is one thing, but like y'all aren't joining a country club, right? Like if you're a member, that's great. But like, what does active participation look like? And also, right, we have members who just haven't told us they don't worship here anymore. And then like I find out from a sibling priest, they're like, oh, so-and-so says, they used to go to St. Martin's. I'm like, oh, okay, they used to. That's good. And so that's a real moving target, right? But we have someone who lives in Arkansas who I've had conversation with. They're transferring their letter of membership here because they worship with us online. They used to attend here years ago. They weren't able to find anything. They have some health things. So their church community is here because they're with us online. And so membership, I'll get those numbers and I'll have them in the printed report. It's a hard thing because you'll see the bishop actually told us he likes it if ASA increases and membership decreases, right? Because that means people are cleaning their books and there's a higher percentage of actively engaged people.
So does that mean we should do more online activities, like make our men's group online?
Maybe.
Or, do more outreach?
Yeah, there's some of that. I mean, we have in our Tuesday night book group is a good example of that. That's the most hybrid formation opportunity we have. We have an active participant who's been involved for 3 years now who lives in Virginia. Well, now lives in Portland. She never lived here. She lived in DC, moved to Portland, and she's still a part of that. We have other people who join in from other friends of friends and things like that. So it is a way that we do that. So some of that is how much time do the people leading these things have? Tuesday morning, the Sisters of the Spirit. No, that's Monday afternoon. Sorry. No, Sisters of the Spirit, the book group that meets over there, they have people that join online, right? So we do some of that. But yeah, we're constantly looking, and we're going to, in a minute, when we get to like the future stuff, we're going to talk some about what we want to do. The future, look at this. All right, 2024. What does the future hold? And also, like, I'll just have you know, I got that screen to work. So remember, if you were here last week, you couldn't see that screen. But thank you. None of y'all are sitting over there this week anyway. Okay, first off, youth. When y'all look at the budget in 2 weeks, the vestry is going to view and approve the budget next week at the meeting, and then it'll be presented to y'all. Remember, the congregation doesn't approve the budget. The congregation just receives it and sees it. The vestry next Sunday is going to approve it. There's a small amount for a youth minister. That person's been identified. That person is already making plans. The youth and families will meet that person next Sunday. While the vestry's in there, while the vestry's voting on these things, the youth are going to have pizza and meet Leah Robinson. Maybe y'all know her. She and her family started worshiping with us on YouTube a couple years ago. They worshiped with us for about a year, and then 2 summers ago, the first thing anyone in that family did in person was Leah volunteered at Vacation Bible School. And we baptized Leah's 2 little sisters last week. Right, those angels that we baptized, that's that family. And so Leah's a college kid. She's helped with VBS. She has a great relationship with the youth. She's going to work super part-time. Basically, we're going to start, there's a whole deal with youth, right? Yeah, we'll go down to this because it ties in with it. Starting in March, the first Sunday of the month, we're going to have a new worship service. It'll be Sunday evenings, once a month. It's going to be casual, contemporary. I'm not going to be wearing this, right? It's going to look a lot different than what you're used to. It's going to be 6 o'clock on Sunday nights. Yeah, the first Sunday of every month. We're going to start once a month. And it's going to be designed for youth and young adults and families. And so the first Sunday of every month, that's what we're offering for youth. Is they can come to that. It's a whole deal. Maybe dinner afterwards, all of that kind of stuff. The second Sunday of every month, we have Service Sunday. That's something, there's kids in this parish who come to church once a month, and it's so they can help at Service Sunday. And so that's the youth event that week. The third Sunday of every month, that's Leah's domain. That's going to be youth group, right? Whether it's doing here and playing freeze tag and eating pizza, or if it's going to a movie, or if it's doing whatever it is that the youth, they're going to have some input in what they want to do. The third Sunday is going to be what you would consider youth group, right? It's going to be after the 10:30 service. Yeah. So the first Sunday of the month is going to be the evenings. Everything else follows immediately after. Fourth Sunday of the month, acolyte training, right? This is a fellowship opportunity. It's a worship opportunity. It's a formation opportunity. Youth show up for that because the biggest thing we do for youth here is the acolyte program. And so fourth Sunday of every month, acolyte training is going to be after the 10:30 service, and that's the youth thing that month. When we have a fifth Sunday, all bets are off. I don't know what the kids are going to do. Yeah, Sam. Second Sunday is Service Sunday. So that's where we make the lunches and all of that. That'll be right after the 10:30 service. Everyone, the people that run that are, sorry, Jim, old. But they're, older. No, but there's teenagers that help. There's little kids that are running things from table to table. It's the most intergenerational thing we do in there.
Also, is that actually people have been doing it for a while. We are very concerned about if somebody isn't here who's been doing it, somebody else come in and take over responsibility. So we really need a lot more people doing stuff.
Yeah. And so the second Sunday, making that the youth thing, giving a higher priority to that is part of the goals there. And so that's what youth will do the second Sunday. If we have ideas for the fifth Sunday, we'll get to that. It only happens a couple times a year. The fields, we talked about that. Master plan, if y'all were here last week, we talked about that. If you weren't here, it's on the website. We recorded it. It'll be up there. This one, I didn't know how to label this. Our brands. I used to do marketing and branding. But this is in 2 weeks, on Saturday the 27th, the vestry, including the incoming folks, are going to get together for the first of a mission, vision, and values session. We're working with J.B. Clark, who's a marketing professional in our congregation. He's a guy who looks like a lumberjack. He plays guitar sometimes for us. He's going to lead us and start us in some of that work to help us define who are we today. We have a mission statement and we've got all these things, but that's all pre-COVID. That's all pre-me. That's all pre-like half of y'all. We looked at the ASA, right? And so there's a whole crop of folks in here who we have maybe we need to discern what the new thing is. So the vestry is going to work with JB and throughout the year congregation will get involved in this as it goes out. But looking at who we are, what's God calling us to do. Some of that will actually turn into branding, like a refreshed identity, as they would call it, maybe like shirts and stickers and things like that, so that when we do marketing, right, because like I'm not afraid of that term, it's one of the ways we grow is we get our name out there. But that's a very small percentage, right? It's something like 90% of people who visit a church for the first time do it because someone invited them, not because, and then the second one is because they've been driving by for a long time. It's not because they saw some billboard. It's not because they saw some Facebook ad. But we'll do some of that stuff as well. So that's something else. There's money you'll see in the budget for some of that work as well. That's coming in 2024. Any questions about any of that stuff so far? I see people fanning themselves. Did we turn down the heat a little bit? It's kind of warm. Is there one behind me? The hot air? Yeah. Okay. We'll crank that down. All right. Dream the big dream. Texas Rangers, I couldn't get through this without talking about the Rangers. So if you don't know anything about Texas Ranger baseball, this year they introduced City Connect jerseys, which is a thing Nike does. All it is a sales pitch to sell more jerseys. But it's an alternate logo and identity that they did. This is a Peagle. I can talk all day about this. This is a combination of the Fort Worth Cats and the Dallas Eagles, two old-timey minor league baseball teams. And so now the Rangers play in the middle. So we created a mythical beast for the Rangers season, and look what it did. But dream the big dream. Mayor Tom Vandergriff, who was mayor of Arlington forever, he wanted a baseball team to come. And he had this saying. He was mayor of a small town, but he somehow convinced General Motors to move a plant there. He somehow convinced all this to happen. And his thing that he said is, we're going to dream the big dream, right? And so the Rangers put that on their jersey tag. It's a thing, it's tucked in, you can't see it, but you'll find merchandise with this and all of that. And like the Rangers, 2 seasons ago, they lost 100 games. Last season, they were below 500. Those of us who have been part of this for a long time, we dream the big dream. And sometimes magic happens, and 2023 happens. And so my question for us, what is the big dream that we as St. Martins are going to dream? I mean, we can talk about the Rangers, and if they're going to repeat, I'm fine to talk about that. But what are the big dreams that we have for this place? Tell me more about retirement homes. What are you thinking about with that?
So one of the things that my friend's church does is they have sign-ups where the retirement homes can say, hey, we have people that can't get the service. They'll have the membership of the home sign up and say, hey, can we have somebody come out from St. Martin's on this day? And then if you're already going there, you can tell them, hey, offer it to everybody else. They're not mobile. They can't.
Yep. There's.
You have one of the largest retirement homes in a mile radius that's literally like a quarter mile that way.
Yeah, whichever way. Yeah. So this is the thing some churches do. Like they work with, retirement communities will have Monday will be worship with X denomination, Tuesday with X, or whatever. And so you work, and then one of the clergy go and lay people, right? Like it's not just going to be something that Gavin and I are signing up for. None of these dreams are things that you pay us to do. I'm just going to put that out there. But like if there's going to be Eucharist, one of us will have to be there. But yeah, finding connections to these places. Do we know folks already in these places? Do we know folks that work at these places? I'm more than willing to have meetings with these folks and set it up. I'd love to talk about this, Gavin. Let's put this on the thing. Yeah.
I know that for my dad, because
Yeah.
hospice, one of the best things for him is he's like, oh, I can finally have the house.
Yep. Yeah. And we send folks, we got someone who's in a rehab facility this week, and Joe Panther's going to go take her communion. We do things like that. We had someone who was a parishioner of mine when I lived in Houston, and I served a church in Houston, Shirley Clay. She moved up here to be closer to her family, and while she was up here, she got put into a skilled nursing facility. And so she couldn't could no longer go to her family's church, whatever. And so she sent me a Facebook message one day and was like, "Hey, can someone bring me communion?" I was like, "Yeah." And so we got someone signed. Like, no one knows who this is. I know who Shirley is, but no one else does. But someone left Sunday and went and took her communion. So there's ways we currently do that, but I'd love to figure out how we could more formally do that. It's a way that, right, we're investing in youth, and I think that's an important thing to do. But it's not like youth are some magic thing, right? Like everyone deserves to have a Christian community, and if there's a way that we can find that for folks who maybe in their situation don't, or find it more difficult, or whatever, yeah, I love that idea. Yeah, Ronnie.
Do you know what type of big cat specifically that is?
It's a panther. Well, this it's called a peagle. I prefer the name that us Ranger fans have given it. I remember I said Tom Vandergriff was the mayor, so this should be called the Vandergriffin. But yeah, so the Fort Worth Panthers was. It's also the Fort Worth Cats. That's the old minor league baseball team. So if you put a panther and an eagle together, apparently you get that. Any other dream? Like, what are some things that? Yeah, Brian.
I think a dream. It's pretty close, but to have a bequeathment for
Yep.
Todd Burrow, that's great, but something that can.
Yeah, when we goose up those burial numbers, we got to have.
That they continue to have an impact.
Yeah, and that's something. Yeah, that's a dream for sure. So retirement homes, we're going to move to the dreams. Endowment. This is something that's been talked about. If I can spell. Endowment. That's been talked about for a long time. There's been plans for it. No, there's been ideas for it for a long time. In the past 6 months, Brian is chairing this group. Bennett's serving on it as well. They're the two people.
And I do have at our next at the Treasury Committee.
Yep.
I do have updates.
Awesome. Yeah, he had a meeting this week, and so it's an actual thing. We're going to start having a vision and mission for that committee, and hopefully in the not too distant future, if you are so inclined, to set up maybe some legacy giving, so that like we can dream things in 20 years when you might not be here anymore, or dream things in 100 years when none of us are going to be here anymore. We'll have a way for that. So yeah, that's absolutely a dream that we hope to have happen this year. Yeah, Rebecca.
I would love to be in an emergency shelter. I know it got brought up. I don't know what stopped it.
Well, we can't be an overnight shelter because we don't have showers. Day shelter.
I wasn't thinking that. I was thinking like a warming center.
Yeah.
Because like if power, I know we were without power for 4 days during the big freeze. We didn't even have water because our tanks were.
Yeah. All it takes is someone who has the keys and can turn on the lights to text me and say, "I want to do this." There's not barriers to things. If you want to do something, like talk to me, we're going to do it, right? We didn't get. Well, yeah, sure, and I would love to have lots of things in case, but we have to make decisions. But yeah, so that's something. We don't officially have any of this. We're working on some longer term emergency planning for things. But if this place has power and someone can get up here and they're not dealing with kit and whatever, like, yeah. My church in Houston served as what's called an embarkment center, which is, we didn't have bathrooms, so we were a day shelter where the boats could float into our parking lot after Hurricane Harvey, because we were on a high spot. And then the big rigs could take people to overnight shelters. That happened because one parishioner figured out how they could get to church. That didn't happen because we had some fancy plan. Certainly didn't happen because Beth and I could get there, because we were both flooded in our neighborhoods, right? This isn't like, we don't need commands from on high. We need people who let people know what's going on, but people who have the energy and the keys to do it. Yeah, because like, we'll swing these doors open for whatever. I mean, there's safeguarding. We'll figure that stuff out. But there's lots we can do, particularly in emergency situations, just because someone can get here. Yeah. Becky, then.
I think increased community involvement, in a lot of different ways. Showing up to Keller, South Lake parades, wearing St. Martin T-shirts to
social events, hosting community events here. I think the forum we had on Alphabet Youth
Yep.
was well attended, and it gave people an idea about what it is here. But I just really think presence both on our campus and us out labeling ourselves,
Yep.
going on walks, going on as a group, and it's good social things for us too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing. If you come to the fellowship meeting, I want to talk about. So much of fellowship in the church gets talked about what are we doing in the parish hall, right? We can also fellowship like at a restaurant, and when people say those people are having a lot of fun, right, that's because they're a community. Like, what are the ways that we can do things out in the community that get us outside of the parish hall or the church, or, right, like blessing of the animals doesn't have, well, if we're doing horses and things, it kind of has to happen here. But we can bless, the city of Keller would let us bless dogs at the dog park, right? We have one parishioner who's interested in that. And some of this is who's interested and willing to step up, right? Like, none of these dreams happen just because we have the idea. We need folks to step up and lead. Like, Bennett, what happened when you came to me and said, hey, could we start a men's group? What did I say to you? Do it, right? And now, like, 8 people gathered yesterday, and they continue to, and we do these things, right? So if we have ideas, like, these are not ideas for other people to do necessarily. We can figure out how we collectively as a community can do it. But I love that idea. Yeah. Hosting things here might be a little bit of an issue because, like, for the spring and to maybe the beginning of summer, like, there will be no here maybe, but because things are moving along. Yes, Senior Warden.
I was just going to say that that shower issue's been haunting me. Had people input about the plans. And I saw one of the, I think it was Dallas, one of the great big, they put 1,000 beds in, just for temporary warm.
Yeah.
They had a tractor trailer with showers.
Yep.
So obviously that exists.
Yeah. The Diocese of Texas. Yeah, the Diocese of Texas has a shower trailer.
I know Ty does that all the time, but I was thinking, well, if we're going to do something like that, we have to install showers.
No, portable, it could be portable. And we should,
Yeah, they
if
roll
the
them in.
church is supposed to serve the people around.
Yeah, right. The Diocese of Texas owns a big shower trailer. It's kept down at Camp Allen.
There you go. I didn't
All
even
it costs,
know that existed.
that's a bigger one. If there's one that has 2 showers that we could figure out the cost, we have a huge parking lot here. There are things that we could actually do that we could not just use here, but send other places. Yeah, these are all great ideas. We have a surplus from the past year. Spoiler alert, you come next week, the numbers, like with attendance, they're equally as good with money. And so things are, yeah, that God's Spirit is moving in this place. I think it's evident by the joy you see on Sunday mornings, and it's evident by numbers are only one thing, right? Like, they are what they are, and they can come and go. But while they're here, like, there's things we can do because of that. And yeah, I love thinking about that. Over here, one of y'all.
Yeah. Meals on Wheels.
Meals on Wheels, yeah.
We used to actually be involved with that, and I think it's something
Yeah, I'm not sure how churches get involved in that.
it's a donation. We used to donate to them, and because they got so much federal subsidy, we stopped it.
We go. And yeah, and some of that is like, there are a million good places for us to donate money. How do we narrow it down into the few places? Meals on Wheels. Yeah, yeah, and so that encouraging people to sign up to be drivers. There's a organization called Food for the Hungry, where I think we did it here before, where you pack like 1,400 things and you send them to places. Things like that are ideas. Yeah, so outreach, figuring out what we can do there.
I was really thinking of people involved delivering meals more than distributing.
We used to donate to them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
donations are great. I'm not, but before
Yeah.
I moved here, our church in Rockford had a Meals on Wheels ministry within the church, and people would sign up and say, okay, on this date I can go, and at that time I was working, so I was limited to weekends. But now that I'm retired, every day is a weekend. So, but I just think that would be a great thing for St. Martin's to get involved in, and let them know, this is coming through the ministry at St.
One more here, and then I've got a couple dreams I'm going to leave us with.
I know there's problems with youth in schools that that's where they eat, that's where they get their
Yep.
food. Would it be possible for us to do like a weekly breakfast or lunch one day a week during the summer? Because there are kids, even within Keller and South Lake, that don't get lunch.
Well, school districts, for food insecure folks, they do get breakfast and lunch at districts. The problem is weekends. And so backpack programs, churches do school backpack programs, not like giving school supplies, but we're going to pack these backpacks with ramen and granola bars and peanut butter and whatever. And so they take them on the weekend, and they do. And I know churches that do that. The breakfast lunch during the summer isn't much of a, it's still a problem, of course. But school districts for the Title I kids, they actually try to do that. But weekends are a real issue, school, food. And so that's something to think about. Yeah. Okay. We're going to continue talking about these, right? Because January is not the only time where we have ideas. But so Lenten outreach. Our Tuesday night call, we were talking about the idea of debt and forgiving debt in general. And someone brought up RIP medical debt. So RIP medical debt, they buy up debt that's been discharged or written off from folks, but it's still weighing on people, right? Like the number of people who declare medical bankruptcy, the number of people in some form of medical debt is astronomical. And so I've been in touch with them. Spoiler alert, starting February 14th, we're going to work with them. I'm setting a goal that we're going to eliminate $1 million of medical debt in Tarrant County. That's going to require us and our friends to raise $10,000 because they literally buy this debt for a penny on the dollar. That's how this math works out. And so this is going to be a crowdfunding campaign. You're not going to write a check to St. Martin's, right? We're going to have a web page set up through RIP Medical Debt because if we do it that way, all of the proceeds go to the debt. And so we'll be able to share it with our friends and neighbors and whoever wants to get involved. And so we might have some matching things as well with that. I'd love to blow that out of the water and do a lot more than $1 million. So that's one thing that's coming up. The other, I'm going to leave this with us for our last 3 minutes. Open Door, which is a real estate website, they, just in the last 2 weeks, came out with the hottest zip codes in the country. This is where the most homes are being built and listed, and most people are moving to. If you look up here, where's number 10? Fort Worth. Does anyone know where 76179 is? Saginaw. It's growing like crazy. Some of y'all live over there. Some of you have to drive to work up in Alliance. So we're over here. All the growth is over here. This is a map that the Fort Worth Star-Telegram has put together. It projects blue is 10-year growth, red is 25-year growth. We're all built out here, right? You come over here, Saginaw. This is where Open Door was just talking about. Roanoke, all the way up. This is Denton County. We'll let Diocese of Dallas worry about that. Down here, this is a fast-growing place. Paula Jefferson is going to worry about this one. Down here, we're the closest Episcopal church here, right? What would a dream look like if there was a St. Martin's over there? Right? And so we could wait and sit around for the diocese to finally get someone to go plant a church up there. The diocese right now, they're planting a church in downtown. Joel McAllister, who's going to come here and talk to us at some point about what he's doing in downtown. They'll eventually, they're planting a church in Waco, they're planting a church in College Station, they're planting a church in Houston, Austin. They're going to the diocese is going to send somebody, right? But like, spoiler alert, we don't have to wait for that, right? And we don't actually have to send 20 of you and stop coming here and go there, although that's an option, and that's the way people get planted. We could do what other churches do and have a second location to where, we have our 2 worship services here on a Sunday. As long as we have 2 clergy, we could have a worship service in Alliance on a Sunday, right? We could start to do fellowship and community events in Alliance throughout the week. We could start to do things over there to build a community Because like you said last week, right? We're building a capacity to 250. Those numbers keep going the way they're going. In a couple of years, we're going to have to add a third service here regardless. Or we could add a third service about 10 miles to the west of us.
You could lease space there too. You don't have to own a building.
Yeah. Yeah, there's lots of ways. And so this is something, Vestry's heard a little bit about this. This has been on my heart a lot. The bishop has heard about this. Gavin, he left. Gavin's heard about this. I don't know, right? Some of it's a financial question. We have to figure out how to make this stuff work. But like, all of you that are going to be here are here, right? There's nowhere to build around here. There's a lot of people over here that are going to need a church home. And I'll tell you, folks who maybe don't talk about God the way we talk about God, they're starting things over here. Right? And so what would it be like for those folks to know that God loves all of them? Yeah. So this is something that, like, I'm serious about. If you're serious about this, I want to talk. And not that it's going to happen in the next year, but somewhere down the road, I think that's a really good idea. I'd like to know who's moving into DFW Airport. That seems really interesting to me. Yeah. All right. So I got to go get ready for church. Some of y'all got to go home, and some of y'all got to come worship with us. Listen to Gavin's sermon. It's going to echo some of what we're talking about here, and we're figuring out where God's moving and God's dream that we want to participate in. Let us pray. Loving God, we give you thanks for the opportunity to be together. We give you thanks for the movement you've had in this place, and we ask that you continue to move in and through and around us. Give us eyes to see the world around us, the needs around us, the gifts around us. Guide our footsteps and keep us focused on you. In Christ's name, amen.